I never thought my family would turn on me, but life has a way of surprising you. For years, I was the responsible one, the one they bragged about. I worked hard, saved money, and even helped out whenever I could, but apparently that meant nothing when it came to Lucas and Samantha. Last year, I invested in a small apartment. It wasn't meant for me to live in, just a smart financial move. Around the same time, my brother Lucas and his wife Samantha ran into money trouble. Bills were piling up. Their son Ethan needed things they couldn't afford. And my dad, always the mediator, kept telling me, "Family helps family, Catherine." So I let them stay in my apartment. No rent, no bills. The deal was simple: 3 months, just until they got back on their feet. But 3 months turned into 4, then 5. Every time I brought it up, there was another excuse. Samantha wasn't working, daycare was too expensive, and Lucas's job search was going well but not quite there yet. By the 6th month, I had enough. I told them they had 2 weeks to find another place. They acted shocked, as if I were throwing them into the streets with no warning. My dad called me selfish. My mom, always avoiding conflict, just sighed and said, "Maybe just a little longer, Catherine." Lucas looked at me like I had betrayed him, as if I hadn't just given him half a year of free housing. The moment I changed the locks, I became the villain. They cut me off from the family. No more Sunday dinners. No messages in our group chat. And the final blow? When my family planned a vacation, something we always did together, they didn't even pretend to include me. My dad looked me in the eye and said, "This trip is just for family." That's when I realized I wasn't family anymore. A month passed. I moved on. If my family wanted to act like I didn't exist, fine. I had my job, my own place, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't have to deal with Lucas and Samantha's never-ending problems. Then, out of nowhere, my phone started blowing up. My dad, my mom, Lucas. Call after call. I ignored them at first, assuming it was a mistake, but then I saw the message from Lucas. "Catherine, please pick up. We need your help." I stared at it for a long time, debating whether I even wanted to know what disaster had hit this time. Before I could decide, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, I barely recognized them. My dad looked exhausted, his shirt wrinkled like he had been sleeping in it. My mom clutched her purse like it was the only thing holding her together. Lucas stood slightly apart, holding Ethan close. Samantha was nowhere to be seen. I folded my arms. "What's going on?" My dad sighed, rubbing his face. "Catherine, we lost everything." I raised an eyebrow. "Everything?" Lucas swallowed hard. "There was a fire. That got my attention. Turns out, while they were off on their grand family vacation, a faulty wire in their rental house sparked a fire. The whole place went up in flames. They weren't home at the time, but when they returned, there was nothing left. Clothes, furniture, important documents all gone. And to make it worse, their renter's insurance had expired a month before, and they never renewed it. I exhaled slowly. "That's unfortunate." Lucas shifted uncomfortably. "We've been staying at a motel, but it's too expensive. We need a place just for a little while." I almost laughed. The irony was too good. A few weeks ago, I wasn't even worth an invitation to a family vacation, and now they were standing on my doorstep, begging for a roof over their heads. Then I noticed something. "Where's Samantha?" Lucas's jaw tightened. "She left." I blinked. "She what?" "After the fire, she said she couldn't take it. She packed a bag and left. I haven't heard from her in a week." I didn't even know how to respond to that. I turned to my parents. "And your house?" My mom's face tightened. "The basement flooded while we were gone. A pipe burst. The insurance is taking weeks to process, and we can't live there right now. A fire, a flood, a missing wife." It was almost biblical. My dad took a deep breath. "Catherine, we have nowhere else to go." I leaned against the doorframe, letting them stand there in silence for a long moment. A month ago, they had no problem cutting me out of their lives. Now, they were on my doorstep, desperate. For the first time in my life, I had the power. I crossed my arms. "All right, you can stay." My mom exhaled in relief. Lucas looked like he might cry. But before they could thank me, I continued. "There are rules." Their faces fell. "You get 1 month, no extensions, and you follow my house rules. Don't like it? Find somewhere else." They nodded, too exhausted to argue. I stepped aside. letting them in. I had no idea that this was just the beginning of the chaos. At first, they were perfect guests. Too perfect. Lucas kept saying, "Thank you, Catherine. I swear, just 1 month, my mom cooked dinner every night, trying to act like everything was normal. My dad even attempted small talk over coffee, pretending we were still one big happy family. But I wasn't stupid. I knew them. This wasn't guilt or gratitude, it was survival. They were on their best behavior because they had no other choice. The cracks started showing on day 3. It was little things at first. Dirty dishes left in the sink. My mom rearranging my kitchen because it made more sense this way. Lucas using my expensive shampoo like it was a free hotel sample. Annoying but tolerable. Then, a week in, I walked into my own living room and stopped cold. My couch was gone. In its place was an old, sagging couch, the same one from my parents' house. The one I had hated since childhood because it smelled like dust and regret. I turned slowly. My mom was folding my laundry like this was just a normal day. "Where the hell is my couch?" I asked. She barely looked up. "Oh, Lucas and your dad moved it into the garage. Ours is more comfortable." I stared at her. "More comfortable for who?" She finally looked at me like I was the unreasonable one. "For us, sweetheart. Don't make a big deal out of it." I rubbed my temples. "You're here for a month. Why are you acting like you own the place?" Lucas sighed dramatically from the kitchen. "Catherine, we're just trying to make it feel a little more like home." I gritted my teeth. "Right. Except it's not your home. It's mine. Now where's my couch?" My dad wandered in, wiping his hands on a rag. "Relax. It's in the garage. We didn't throw it out." That night, for the first time in my life, I locked my bedroom door. Then things got worse. One night around midnight, I heard voices in the kitchen. Groggy, I got up and found Lucas and my dad whispering in the corner. They stopped when they saw me. "Something wrong?" I asked. My dad forced a smile. "Just talking." That's when I noticed it. Lucas was holding my car keys. I blinked. "Why do you have my keys?" Lucas hesitated. "I was going to ask you, but I didn't want to wake you." "Ask me what?" He exhaled, like I was being difficult. "If I could borrow your car." I crossed my arms. "For what?" "Just picking up some stuff from storage." Something about the way he said it felt off. At midnight, he clutched the keys tighter. "I didn't think you'd mind. Give me my keys." He sighed dramatically and tossed them onto the counter like I was the unreasonable one. I snatched them up and went back to my room, locking the door behind me. The next morning, something told me to check my glove compartment. My spare credit card was gone. I checked my account. $200 had been spent at a gas station just a few hours earlier. Furious, I marched back inside. Lucas was sitting on their stupid couch, eating my cereal. I held up my phone. "Did you take my credit card?" He went pale for half a second, then rolled his eyes. "Oh my God, Catherine. I was going to tell you." I almost laughed. "Were you?" "Before or after I noticed." He crossed his arms. "I just needed gas, okay? I'll pay you back." "Like you paid back the rent?" I shot back. That hit home, because he had no comeback. My mom walked in just as I was about to lose it. "What's going on?" I turned to her. "Lucas stole my credit card." She clicked her tongue. "Catherine, don't make a big deal out of this." I laughed. "Are you serious? He stole from me, and you're okay with that?" She sighed, like I was being dramatic. "He's your brother. It's just gas money." Unbelievable. I looked at Lucas. "Pack your stuff. You're done." His eyes widened. "Catherine, come on, no. I let you stay here and you steal from me? Get out." I turned to my parents. "And if you're okay with this, then you can go too." They looked at each other, silent. "If he's not gone by tonight, you're all gone." I meant it. What I didn't know was that Lucas had one last trick up his sleeve, and I was about to regret ever letting him in. I needed to cool off. If I stayed in that house any longer, I was going to say something I couldn't take back. So, I grabbed my keys and left. I drove around aimlessly, stopped for coffee, and tried to remind myself that I wasn't the crazy one. They were. I had given Lucas a place to stay, covered his expenses for months, and this was how he repaid me? Stealing from me? No, not again. By the time I got back, I had made my decision. Lucas was out. My parents could stay if they wanted, but I wasn't bending anymore. I wasn't going to let them manipulate me into feeling guilty for setting boundaries. But as soon as I pulled into the driveway, I knew something was wrong. The front door was wide open. My stomach dropped. I rushed inside. Hello? Silence. I checked the living room. The wrong couch was still there. Lucas's suitcase was in the hall, untouched. Then I heard it. A noise from my office. I sprinted down the hall and froze. Lucas was at my desk, going through my drawers. He jumped when he saw me. "Catherine, I can explain." I looked around. My locked file cabinet had been forced open. Papers were everywhere: bank statements, financial records, investment documents. Cold realization hit me. Are you looking for my bank information? His mouth opened and closed. I needed to see if you had any extra money. I took a step closer, my hands shaking with anger. Extra money? For what? Lucas swallowed hard. The motel is too expensive. We don't have a safety net. You have so much. I thought maybe if I stepped back. Oh my God, you were trying to steal from me. It's not stealing, he blurted out. I was just going to transfer a little. I would have paid you back. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. First it was my apartment, then my car, now my bank account. What's next, Lucas? My whole life? His face darkened. Catherine, please. No. I pointed to the door. You're done. Get out. And then he said it. If I go, Mom and Dad go too. I stopped cold. Excuse me? He straightened, expression changing. They can't afford a motel. If I leave, they leave. Are you really going to kick them out too? I stared at him. My own brother using our parents as a human shield. I don't owe you anything, Lucas. Not after this, he scoffed. So you're seriously going to kick out Mom? She carried you for 9 months, and this is how you repay her? I almost laughed. Mom was fine kicking me out of a family vacation. She was fine with you stealing from me. So yeah, if she wants to go with you, she can go. I walked out of the office and into the living room where my parents were standing. They had definitely heard everything. I turned to them. I need to know right now, are you staying with him or are you staying with me? My mom hesitated. My dad ran a hand over his face. Catherine, let's not be too hasty, no. Answer me. Are you on his side or mine? The silence was deafening. Then my mom spoke. He's family. We don't leave family. I exhaled slowly. Then I nodded. Okay, then you all need to leave. My dad's head snapped up. Catherine, no. I let you in. I gave you a chance. And this is what you do? I shook my head. We're done. Lucas's face twisted. You're making a mistake. I opened the front door. No, Lucas. You did. And just like that, I kicked my entire family out. Or at least, I thought I had. Because the next morning, I found out what Lucas had done after he left. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter. For the first time in months, I didn't have to tiptoe around my own house. There were no more stolen credit cards, no missing furniture, no midnight whispers in my kitchen. It was finally over, or so I thought. I grabbed my phone to check my emails, but out of habit, I opened my banking app first, and that's when my stomach dropped. A $33,000 withdrawal. I froze. My mind raced. It had been transferred directly to Lucas's account. I shot up from bed, sprinted to my office, and threw open my laptop. My online banking was still logged in. My hands were shaking as I checked the transaction history. The money had been transferred late last night. Lucas must have done it before I caught him in my office. That thieving, manipulative. I grabbed my phone and called him, straight to voicemail. I called again. Same result. I wasn't playing games anymore. I dialed 911. Yes, I need to report a theft. My brother stole money from my bank account. The cops showed up at Lucas's motel within 30 minutes. I pulled up just behind them, my heart pounding with fury. He opened the door, looking like he had just woken up. When he saw the officers, his eyes widened. Lucas Owens? One of the officers said. Lucas blinked. Yeah? We have a report that you took money from your sister's account without permission. Lucas turned to me, and just like that, he put on his classic act, pure innocence. Oh my God, Catherine, are you serious? I stepped forward. Don't even start, Lucas. You literally stole from me, he scoffed, crossing his arms. I didn't. That money was a joke. I was going to send it back. I almost laughed. A joke? 33 grand is a joke to you? One of the cops turned to him. Sir, do you have anything to say about this? Lucas let out a fake laugh. Come on, it was a prank. I transferred it, but I was going to return it this morning. Check her account. I refreshed my banking app. Sure enough, the money was back. I clenched my jaw. That didn't change the fact that he had stolen it in the first place. The cops exchanged looks. I knew that look. My stomach twisted. You're taking him to the station, right? I asked. The older officer scratched his head. Look, lady, he gave the money back. No harm, no foul. My jaw nearly dropped. You're kidding, the other cop shrugged. I'm not saying it's right, but at the end of the day, he returned it. It's not exactly grand larceny. I wanted to scream. So if I steal 30 grand from him, but return it after I get caught, that's fine? I snapped. They didn't answer. I turned to Lucas. He was smirking. I could have strangled him. Instead, I clenched my fists and exhaled. "You're pathetic," Lucas grinned. "Thanks for stopping by, sis." I turned to the cops. "Thanks for nothing." Then I walked away. But I wasn't done, not by a long shot. That night, I blocked Lucas's number. Then I blocked Mom's. Then Dad's. I even deleted the family group chat. If they wanted me out of their lives, I'd make it easy. And for the first time in a long time, my life felt calm. No more sudden phone calls, no more guilt trips, no more being their backup plan. I could finally breathe. And then I decided to do something for myself. A month later, I booked a trip to Hawaii, 5-star resort, ocean view, private excursions, the whole luxury experience. But instead of inviting my parents or Lucas, I invited my cousins, the part of my family that actually appreciated me. We spent a week surfing, drinking cocktails by the pool, and laughing until our stomachs hurt. And of course, I made sure to document everything. Just when I thought I was over the whole situation, I had a little idea, a tiny little idea. I opened the old family group chat, the one where they had been ignoring me for months, and sent a photo. Me, on the beach, holding a cocktail, sunglasses on, smiling from ear to ear, having a great time in Hawaii. Hope everyone's doing well. I hit send and tossed my phone aside. 5 minutes later, my notifications exploded. Dad, really? Catherine? Mom, was this necessary? Lucas, are you serious? I smiled, stretched out on my lounge chair, and sent another picture. This time, it was me and my cousins at a fancy restaurant by the ocean, raising our glasses. Cheers to family. An hour later, I checked the chat. Mom and Lucas had both blocked me. I laughed so hard I nearly fell out of my chair. My cousin Ethan leaned over. "What's so funny?" I grinned. "Nothing, just the last word." And you know what? They never reached out again. Turns out, when you stop being useful to people who only take, they disappear. And honestly, I've never been happier. Story 2. The crystal wine glass trembled slightly in my hand as I watched my husband, Ryan, raise his own. He stood at the far end of the long mahogany dining table, his deep voice carrying effortlessly through the room. "To new beginnings," he said, smiling that easy, confident smile that had always charmed a room without me. The words hung in the air, sharp as broken glass. I saw the moment everyone registered what he'd said. My sister, Danielle, tensed beside me, her hand finding mine under the table. My parents averted their eyes, suddenly fascinated by their mashed potatoes. Our friends, though, they raised their glasses in unison, a chorus of support for Ryan, the man they had always admired more than me. I took a slow sip of my Cabernet, the one I had been saving for a special occasion. Carefully, the first set my glass back down, meeting Ryan's eyes across the table. "To new beginnings," I echoed, my voice even. He thought he had blindsided me. He thought he was the one holding all the cards. What Ryan didn't know was that by the time he realized what I had done, it would be too late. The rest of dinner passed in a strained hum of forced conversation. But beneath the surface, tension crackled like a live wire. Ryan played the gracious host, charming and affable as ever, serving turkey and pouring wine like he hadn't just announced the end of our marriage over Thanksgiving dinner. 3 months ago, I wouldn't have recognized the woman I had become. Back then, I was Olivia Carter, the perfect wife, the woman who hosted dinner parties, supported her husband's career, and made excuses for his late nights. The woman who turned a blind eye to the lipstick stains that weren't mine, the whispered phone calls he thought I couldn't hear. That Olivia was long gone, because I had found something worse than an affair. Ryan hadn't just been unfaithful. He had been planning my removal from his life for over a year, strategizing, moving assets, sending carefully worded messages to our mutual friends, our family, his lawyer, laying the groundwork to leave me with nothing. I had read them all. He didn't know that. Yet, "Olivia, dear," my mother said too loudly, as if sheer force of volume could erase the last 10 minutes. "The turkey is wonderful this year." I smiled at her. "Thank you, Mom. New brining technique." Ryan shot me a look, his jaw tight. He had wanted to cancel Thanksgiving, but I had insisted. "Family traditions are important," I had told him. "Always thinking of others," Ryan said now, lifting his wine to his lips. "That's what makes you so special." I met his gaze, my expression unreadable. Ryan had always mistaken my kindness for weakness. That was his first mistake. It wouldn't be his last. As dessert was served, Ryan decided to make his next move. He set down his fork and straightened, drawing the room's attention as easily as flipping a switch. "I've been meaning to tell everyone," he began. "I've accepted a position at a top firm in Chicago. I'll be heading their corporate litigation division starting in January. The room erupted into congratulations. That's fantastic news, man. Ryan's business partner, Daniel, clapped him on the back. You'll be brilliant there, Ryan, my father added, his voice warm. For a moment, Ryan let the praise wash over him, basking in it. Then, as if just remembering, he turned to me, his expression carefully neutral. Olivia and I have had some difficult discussions, he continued, with the polished ease of a man used to controlling a narrative. We've realized we're heading in different directions. Sympathetic murmurs rippled through the table. His sister, Julia, leaned forward, concern etched across her face. Olivia, I had no idea. Oh, I won't be going to Chicago, I cut in, my voice light. I swirled the last of my wine in my glass and took a small sip. As Ryan put it so eloquently in his toast, we're heading in different directions. Silence. For the first time that night, Ryan faltered. His grip tightened around his knife. This wasn't the script he had expected me to follow. Maybe this isn't the right time to discuss this, Julia said gently. I turned to her. When is the right time then? Between dessert and coffee? I let the words hang for a beat, then smiled. Speaking of which, I'll grab the pie. Without waiting for a response, I stood and carried the plates into the kitchen. I pressed my palms flat against the cool marble countertop, steadying myself. Through the doorway, I could hear Ryan's voice, calm and controlled as he spun his version of events. She's taking it hard, he was saying. Her therapist thinks there may be some depression involved. A neat, clinical lie. I hadn't seen a therapist in years, not since the miscarriage. The one Ryan had said was probably for the best. I clenched my jaw, forcing the memory away. Focus, Olivia. I reached into the drawer and pulled out the knife, slicing cleanly through the pumpkin pie. One cut, then another. Ryan had been preparing for this divorce for months. So had I. The separate bank account, the consultation with my lawyer, the lease on my new apartment, the job interview at the art gallery next week. Ryan thought he was playing chess. He had no idea I had been moving my own pieces all along. Need any help? I turned to find Danielle standing in the doorway, arms crossed, worry creasing her brow. I exhaled. I've got it under control. Her gaze searched mine, and after a long moment, she nodded. Good. I carried the pie back to the dining room, setting it down in front of Ryan. Our fingers brushed as I passed him his slice, and for the first time all evening, I saw something flicker behind his carefully composed mask. Doubt. Good. I picked up my wine glass and raised it one last time. To dreams deferred, I said, tilting my glass slightly in Ryan's direction, and to finally waking up. That night, after the last guest had gone, Ryan cornered me in the hallway. Was that necessary? His voice was low, seething. You're the one who announced our separation at Thanksgiving dinner, I said coolly. I merely followed your lead. He ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, jaw clenched. I've been generous with the settlement offer, Olivia. Don't push me. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I wondered how I had ever mistaken his arrogance for strength, his ambition for vision. The thing is, Ryan, I said quietly, I'm not afraid of you anymore. A slow smile curled at the edges of his lips, but there was no warmth in it. You should be. I didn't flinch. We'll see. Later that night, as I wiped down the kitchen counters, my phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. It's done. Record secured. Meeting tomorrow as planned. I deleted the message, my pulse steady. Ryan had no idea. While he was planning his escape, I had been planning my own, and by the time he figured it out, it would be too late. Morning arrived in slow shades of gray, the November sky thick with clouds. I had barely slept. By the time I came downstairs, Ryan was already in the kitchen, perfectly put together in his charcoal suit, scrolling through his phone like it was just another morning. There's coffee, he said without looking up. This was our new reality, polite detachment, an illusion of civility stretched so thin I could almost hear it tearing. Thanks. I poured myself a cup, wrapping my hands around the warmth. Ryan finally looked up. We should talk about last night. I took a sip, letting the bitterness settle on my tongue. What's there to talk about? You were upset. It's understandable. His tone was dismissive, like my emotions were an administrative issue that needed handling. I set my cup down. I wasn't upset, Ryan. I was surprised by your timing. 15 years together, and you chose Thanksgiving dinner to make the announcement. He sighed, running a hand down his tie, smoothing it unnecessarily. I thought it would be easier. Everyone in one place, one clean break. Efficient, I murmured. Exactly. He didn't catch the sarcasm. I leaned against the counter, studying him. What are your plans? I assume you'll want to stay in Boston, he said, slipping his phone into his pocket. I don't see a reason to fight over the house. That was rich, coming from a man who had already transferred our assets into accounts I wasn't supposed to know about. I smiled faintly, still figuring that out, and that was the truth. Not about where I was going. I had already secured an apartment, but about what came next. Because last night had proven something to me. Ryan wasn't just leaving me, he was erasing me, and I wasn't going to let that happen. He checked his watch. I have meetings all day. Dinner with the Hendersons on Friday. I'd appreciate it if you kept things discreet until I've had time to inform the senior partners about our situation. Of course. His career, always the priority. Of course, I said smoothly. Wouldn't want to make things messy. Ryan gave me one last unreadable look, grabbed his briefcase, and left. The moment the door shut behind him, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Game on. At 10:30 a.m., I walked into Ellison Investigative Services. The office was small but professional, muted grays. A wall of filing cabinets, a single coffee machine humming in the corner. Rita Ellison, a woman with sharp eyes and the no-nonsense energy of someone who had seen it all, gestured for me to sit. Miss S. Carter, she said, flipping open a file. My team has been busy. For the next hour, Rita laid everything out. Bank transfers, offshore accounts, a second mortgage on our home one I had never signed for. And the emails. So many emails. Between Ryan and his old college friend at the firm in Chicago. Subject line, the Olivia situation. Jesus. I exhaled, skimming the printed exchanges. Ryan had been orchestrating this for over a year. It's enough for leverage, Rita said. Not necessarily for criminal charges. Proving intent is tricky. But most men like your husband, they care more about their reputation than a legal battle. Ryan had built an image of himself as a respected attorney, a community man, the guy you trusted with a firm handshake. If people found out he was trying to screw over his wife financially, that image would crack. What's the next step? I asked. Rita leaned forward. That depends on what you want. That question caught me off guard. For months, I had been in survival mode, gathering information, planning counter moves. But what did I actually want? Revenge? Maybe. Justice? Absolutely. But more than anything, I wanted my life back. A life that wasn't defined by being Ryan Carter's wife. I want what's mine, I said. And I want him to face the consequences. Rita nodded. Then we moved to phase 2. Your attorney will handle the legal front. My job is making sure you stay ahead of him. I left her office feeling lighter, but as I stepped onto the sidewalk, my phone rang. Ryan's name flashed on the screen. I answered, keeping my voice neutral. Hello? Where are you? His tone was sharper than usual. I just got a call from the Newberry Street Gallery. They said you have an interview scheduled for tomorrow. I pulled into a parking space near my sister's place. I do. An art gallery job? He sounded genuinely incredulous. Olivia, you haven't worked in over a decade. What could you possibly? Assistant curator. I cut in. It's exactly what I want. This is exactly what I'm talking about, he said, exasperation creeping in. These impulsive decisions. You're not thinking clearly. Actually, I was thinking more clearly than I had in years. We'll discuss this tonight, he added, his voice returning to its usual, I'm in control here tone. No, we won't, I said. I'm having dinner with Danielle. Don't wait up. And before he could say another word, I ended the call. The small thrill that shot through me, that was the feeling of taking my life back. At lunch, I met Danielle at a small cafe near her apartment. You look different, she said, studying me. I feel different, she leaned in. Did the investigator find anything? Oh yeah. I slid a small silver key across the table. Danielle frowned. What's this? A safe deposit box key. Her expression turned serious. You want me to keep something for you? I nodded. Copies of everything? Just in case. She took the key without hesitation. Whatever you need. That afternoon, I stopped by the bank, removing important documents and a flash drive containing every piece of evidence against Ryan. As I stepped outside, I noticed a familiar figure across the street. Julia, Ryan's sister. She was watching me, phone in hand. Our eyes met, and she quickly turned away, walking off. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Had Ryan asked her to follow me? That evening, as I was getting ready for dinner with Danielle, my phone chimed. Julia, we need to talk. Not everything is as it seems. Meet me tomorrow, 9 a.m. Porter Square Coffee. The first stared at the message, uncertainty prickling my skin. Julia had always been loyal to Ryan. Was this a trap, or did she know something I needed to hear? Before I could decide how to respond, another text came through. Unknown number, warning, D knows you met investigator. Deleted surveillance footage from office. Be careful. My heart pounded. Ryan knew. I turned, scanning the bookshelf. There a small red light blinking. The home security camera. The one Ryan had installed last year. I had almost forgotten about it, which was probably his plan all along. I walked straight up to it, looked directly into the lens, and unplugged it from the wall. Then I grabbed my coat and keys, texting Danielle. Change of plans. Need to see you now. Emergency. As I stepped out the door, I knew one thing for sure. Ryan thought he was in control. He had no idea what was coming. Danielle's apartment was a fourth-floor walk-up in Cambridge, the kind of place filled with secondhand books, mismatched mugs, and plants that somehow thrived despite her neglect. I barely had my coat off before she pulled me inside, locking the door behind me. What happened? She asked, eyes scanning my face. I handed her my phone, letting her read the texts from Julia and the unknown number. She muttered a curse under her breath. Ryan deleted security footage? That means he's covering something up. Exactly. I ran a hand through my hair, and now his sister suddenly wants to talk? Feels like a setup. Danielle crossed her arms. Or maybe she found out something she wasn't supposed to. That was the problem. I couldn't tell if Julia was trying to help or if she was Ryan's messenger. You don't have to go, Danielle said. You don't owe her anything. I exhaled slowly. No, but I owe it to myself to know everything. She studied me for a moment, then nodded. Okay, but you don't go alone. The next morning, I changed the meeting spot. Instead of Porter Square, I texted Julia to meet me at a small diner near Harvard Square. Neutral ground. Public, but with enough privacy to talk. I got there first, choosing a booth in the back where I could see both the entrance and the street. When Julia arrived, she looked different, usually polished. Today she seemed tired, her hair in a loose ponytail, dark circles under her eyes. You changed the location, she said, sliding into the booth. I didn't respond. Just let the waitress take our coffee orders. Julia stirred cream into hers, watching me carefully. You probably don't trust me. I get that. Then why are you here? She hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out a manila envelope, setting it between us. I found these, she said quietly. Ryan left his laptop open when he took a call. I made copies. I stared at the envelope for a moment before picking it up. Inside were emails. Ryan and his lawyer. Ryan and his boss. Ryan and his financial advisor. One subject line jumped out immediately. Olivia's financial incompetence. Positioning the narrative, my stomach clenched. I flipped to the first email. From Ryan Carter to Stephen Harrington, lawyer, subject. Olivia's financial incompetence. Positioning the narrative, Stephen. As discussed, I need to ensure Olivia's access to assets is minimized before she realizes what's happening. She hasn't worked in years, so positioning her as financially irresponsible shouldn't be difficult. The offshore transfers will be finalized this week. Need the Chicago lease signed under my name, only no paper trail. If we move quickly, she won't have time to contest. The goal, minimal financial damage and complete narrative control. Let me know if there are any weak spots I need to cover before we proceed. Ryan. The words blurred for a moment as pure rage flooded my system. Unbelievable, I muttered, gripping the paper so tight my fingers ached. Julia cleared her throat. There's more. I flipped through the rest. One email confirmed what I suspected. Ryan wasn't just hiding money. He was laying the groundwork to make me look unstable, unfit to handle finances, possibly even mentally unwell. Another was between Ryan and his boss in Chicago. From Ryan Carter to David Linford, managing partner, Chicago firm. Subject, quick question, David. Appreciate the offer, excited about the transition. Quick legal question. If a spouse has a history of anxiety, depressive episodes, would that impact alimony distribution rulings in Illinois? Hypothetically, of course. Ryan, I set the paper down, my pulse pounding. He's trying to weaponize my past, I said, barely able to keep my voice steady. Julia swallowed. I didn't know how bad it was until I saw those. That's why I reached out. I met her gaze. Why are you really helping me? She hesitated, looking down at her coffee. Then she turned her head slightly, and for the first time, I noticed the faint yellow bruise along her jawline, just barely covered with makeup. My breath caught. Julia. She shook her head quickly. This isn't about me. It's about you. The pieces fell into place. Ryan had never been physically violent with me. But Julia's husband? That was another story, and Ryan knew. He'd helped cover it up. I won out, she whispered. And if Ryan goes down, all the better. For the first time, I believed her. After leaving the diner, I drove straight to Marie's office. She was waiting in the conference room, flipping through a stack of documents when I walked in. You look like you have something. I dropped the manila folder onto the table. Marie skimmed the first email, her mouth pressing into a tight line. Oh, he's a special kind of arrogant. What do we do next? I asked. Marie's eyes gleamed. We hit him before he sees it coming. She laid out our strategy. File an emergency motion to freeze all remaining assets. Use the emails to demonstrate Ryan's bad faith, making it easier to contest his financial maneuvers. Leverage his career, letting his firm know that he's been discussing questionable financial and legal tactics could create serious problems for him. He's backed himself into a corner, Marie said, and we're about to set it on fire. That night, Ryan called me. I let it ring. Then, finally, I answered. His voice was tight. We need to talk. About this war you're waging, he snapped. I was willing to be reasonable. I laughed. Actually laughed. Reasonable. You were trying to take everything from me. You don't understand how the real world works, Olivia, he said, voice dropping into that I'm smarter than you tone he always used. I glanced at the emails spread out on my desk, the truth in black and white. Actually, Ryan, I said, voice steady, I think I understand just fine. A long silence. Then, cold as ice, you're going to regret this. I hung up. And for the first time in months, I wasn't afraid. Because Ryan had finally realized something. I wasn't just fighting back. I was winning. The next morning, I woke up feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Control. For so long, Ryan had been 3 steps ahead, carefully crafting his escape, shifting money, setting up his new life. But now he knew he was cornered, and he hated it. I poured my coffee, staring out the window at the gray Boston skyline, letting the quiet settle around me. My phone vibrated on the counter. Marie. I picked up. Tell me something good. Her voice was all business. The judge signed off on the emergency motion. Ryan can't touch another cent. I exhaled slowly. That meant everything left in our accounts was locked down. No more transfers. No more sudden disappearances of funds. What about the firm? I asked. There was a pause. We sent an anonymous tip. I gripped the edge of the counter. And Marie's voice was calm, but I could hear the satisfaction underneath. His partners are looking into it. If they find evidence of unethical financial activity, I smiled. His career is on the line. There was a rustling of papers on her end. He'll figure it out soon, if he hasn't already. Keep your phone close. I hung up, setting my mug down. Ryan would come at me harder now. Cornered animals always do. At 10 a.m., I arrived at Newberry Street Gallery for my interview. Walking through the glass doors, I felt like I was stepping into a different life, one where I wasn't just Ryan Carter's wife, wasn't just the woman he had tried to erase. The gallery smelled like old books and fresh paint, the air humming with quiet energy. The director, Isabel Frost, greeted me in a sleek, no-nonsense blazer, her sharp gray eyes assessing. Olivia Carter? I shook her hand. Yes, thank you for seeing me. She gestured toward a small office, motioning for me to sit. Let's talk about your work. I placed my portfolio on the table, my fingers steady despite the nervous energy thrumming in my chest. For the next half hour, we talked about art restoration, curation, color theory, things I hadn't let myself think about in years. At the end, Isabel studied me for a long moment. You're talented and serious about this. I am. She tapped her pen against the table. Your husband called me. The air shifted. I kept my face neutral. Oh? He said you were going through a difficult time, that you might not be reliable. I held Isabel's gaze. Did he? She nodded. I've seen men like him before. They think they control the narrative. A pause. Then she slid a contract across the table. The position is part-time to start, she said, but I have a feeling you'll prove yourself quickly. For the first time in a long time, I felt light. I picked up the pen and signed. That afternoon, I packed a small suitcase. Marie had warned me. Once Ryan found out about the asset freeze, our house wouldn't be safe. I stuffed clothes, toiletries, and a few personal items into the bag. The rest could wait. I was zipping it closed when I heard the front door slam. Ryan. I straightened, my pulse steady. His footsteps were deliberate, echoing through the hardwood floors. I turned just as he entered the bedroom. "You think this is a game?" he said, voice low and furious. I crossed my arms. "I think it's a legal process. When you're losing." His eyes flicked to the suitcase. "Where do you think you're going?" I grabbed the handle. "I'm staying with Danielle for a few days." His jaw tightened. "You're my wife, not for much longer." Ryan stepped closer, his presence towering, but I didn't back away. "You just couldn't leave it alone, could you?" he hissed. I tilted my head. "You mean let you drain our accounts and destroy my reputation?" His mouth pressed into a thin line. "You don't understand what you've done." I studied him carefully. For the first time since this all began, Ryan looked afraid. I took a slow breath. Move. For a second, I thought he wouldn't. Then, jaw clenched, he stepped aside. I walked past him, not looking back. Danielle met me at the door, eyes scanning my face. "He didn't touch you, did he?" "No," I said. "But he wanted to." She exhaled. Marie called. "The firm put him on administrative leave while they review his financial records." I sat down on her couch, rubbing my temples. "That means he's losing everything." Danielle sat beside me. "Do you think he's desperate enough to do something?" I was quiet for a long moment. Then, softly, yes. That night, my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. A low voice spoke. "He's looking for a way out." I gripped the phone. "Who is this?" A pause. Then, "A friend." The line went dead. I set the phone down, heart pounding. Ryan was cornered, and cornered men make mistakes. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on Danielle's couch, staring at the ceiling, my mind running through every possible scenario. Ryan was unraveling. His money was frozen. His job was on the line. His carefully planned escape had collapsed in front of him, and desperate men made mistakes. At 7:00 a.m., my phone rang. "Marie." I sat up, rubbing my eyes before answering. "Tell me you have good news." She sighed. His lawyer called. "They want a meeting today." I swung my legs over the side of the couch. "They're rushing." "Because they're panicking." She paused. "Which means we have leverage." I exhaled slowly. "What's the play?" Marie's voice was calm, steady. "We let them think they still have options. Then we take them all away." I ran a hand through my hair. "I'll be ready." At 11:00 a.m., we walked into the law office. Marie led the way, her heels clicking against the polished floors, her face unreadable. Ryan was already there, seated across the long mahogany table. His lawyer, Lawrence Palmer, sat beside him, a man in his 50s, with the cold, measured energy of someone who had spent years making bad men look reasonable. Ryan looked different. The arrogance was gone. His usual polished confidence had been replaced by something harder, something sharper. I sat down across from him, back straight, chin level. Marie placed a folder on the table. "Let's begin." Palmer adjusted his tie. "My client is willing to offer a revised settlement." I stayed silent, letting Marie do what she did best. She flipped open the folder. "Your client is in no position to offer anything. The financial freeze stays. We have evidence of his asset transfers, his offshore accounts, and his deliberate attempt to conceal marital funds." Palmer's face remained neutral, but Ryan's jaw clenched. Marie continued, smooth and ruthless. "We also have emails proving his attempt to manipulate the court's perception of my client, positioning her as financially incompetent and emotionally unstable." Palmer inhaled through his nose. "We're willing to negotiate." Marie didn't blink. "Then listen carefully." She slid our agreement across the table. The terms were simple. A fair division of assets, no hidden accounts, no loopholes. Alimony for 5 years, covering Olivia's transition into financial independence. A non-disparagement clause. Ryan couldn't speak publicly or privately about our divorce in any way that could damage my reputation. If he refused, we went to court with every piece of evidence. Silence filled the room. Ryan's grip tightened around the pen, his shoulders stiff, his breathing controlled. Then, without looking at me, he signed the papers. It was over. Outside, the air was crisp and sharp, the city humming around me. Marie tucked the folder into her bag, giving me a sideways glance. You okay? I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for months. I think I will be, she nodded. Go start your life, Olivia. You've earned it. I watched as she disappeared into a cab, then turned toward the street, my feet carrying me forward, toward a future that was finally mine. That evening, I stood in my new apartment, watching the city lights blink against the dark sky. It was small, just a one-bedroom. The furniture was secondhand, the walls still bare. But it was mine. My phone vibrated. Unknown number. It's done. No loose ends. I stared at the screen for a long moment before deleting the message. Ryan was gone. His money, his power, his control over me. Gone. I picked up my wine glass, stepping onto the small balcony. The night air was cool against my skin, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free.